My fellow Americans.
Take the red pill.
We're at war with the most dangerous enemy that has ever faced mankind in his long climb from the swamp to the stars.
The disastrous rise of misplaced power exists.
All we have built, all we have worked for, would be destroyed.
There is nothing the political establishment will not do.
And this nation will not be fully free until all its citizens are free.
Our arms must be mighty, ready for instant action,
These criminals cannot be rewarded.
so that no potential aggressor may be tempted to risk his own destruction.
There is a point beyond which they must not advance.
They're coming after you, and I'm just standing in their way. Here I am.
You and I have a rendezvous with destiny.
The cost of freedom is always high.
Those who had the most to lose did the least to prevent its happening.
Our movement is about replacing a failed and corrupt political establishment.
Well, I think it's time we ask ourselves if we still know the freedoms that were intended for us by the Founding Fathers.
This is a crusade! This is a holy war against the deep state!
We never wanted to be right, but yet things are all adding up to the firestorm.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave? Oh, the land of the free.
I mean, right at the beginning, it happens. We lose the stream right during the intro song. Oh my God. Geez, things are starting earlier tonight. I am back. I hope you guys are doing well tonight. That was the national anthem in a minor key with battle, rain, and wind ambience. That is on YouTube. You can find that out there. It's a very somber setting for tonight's conversation. So Last night, well, firstly, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome to the Red Pill Project's Daily Dose. Live with you Monday through Thursday, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is where we bring you that unfolding global conspiracy. And I hope you guys enjoyed last night's conversation. For everybody out there wondering, it's back. Boom. It is back. Sorry about that. We got a little snafu. And I don't know what happened. It wasn't me, but we'll figure out what happened there. It just keeps on happening all the damn time, doesn't it? We keep on getting interrupted on the broadcast, probably because of last night's interview. I don't know if everybody truly understands the scope of what happened last night in the interview with Patrick Byrne, with Alpha the Warrior myself. There's a reason why this show is called Hybrid Warfare tonight. It's also MAHA Thursday, Make America Healthy Again Thursday. So Thursdays that's kind of the thing that we do on Thursdays. We have Tammy's going to be coming in, co-hosting half the show with me. We're going to be talking about a lot of health-related stuff. But the first part of the show is Hybrid Warfare. And also, I have my Red Pill Daily Brief. If you're not subscribed to that, make sure you get subscribed to that, because I have some info about last night's interview that I need to share with you, but I'm only going to do it on there. And it's not because I want to do it on the subscription. It's because I really don't even want to put it out on my show. It's like that. Okay. It's pretty crazy. So I'd much rather put it out on a subscription than anywhere else. If you're wondering where you can get that info, right there, redpillproject.substack.com. That's the one best place. The next best place is socialredpill.com. You also get the crypto mastermind and stuff in there. And then the other one is on your friend Rumble. Just go to locals. But I got some information to talk to you guys about. And I'm gonna go more in depth of kind of what I'm talking about. Someone is screwing with me. Maybe they don't want me to talk about it. Oh my goodness. My internet has never been this flaky in all my time. I'm wondering if they're trying to shut me down for what I'm about to say. I don't know. It's a possibility. So Patrick Byrne's interview last night. Listen, I've interviewed hundreds upon hundreds of people. I'm an incredibly good judge of character. I have a natural instinct to kind of really, truly know a person intentionally and truthfully by talking to them and communicating with them. I've been fairly... I keep on losing connection. I don't know what the hell is going on. If it does happen and it's longer than like a minute and a half, then I will have to kill the stream and start all over again. It's my computer. It says internet access. Everything's good. Then it'll just kill and die out and then come back. Die out and come back. Let's see. Let's test it. I'm going to go back into the Patrick Byrne conversation and see what happens. I believe Patrick Byrne's story. Legitimately, I believe Patrick Byrne was telling the truth last night. I also believe Patrick Byrne was guiding and leading people, being very upfront and truthful, but also at the same time putting nuggets out there that if you listen to the interview, you catch. He told us some information on the show last night. I don't know if people caught it. It was the first time that he's ever said it publicly. And I will talk about that tonight. But it was the first time that he talked about it publicly. And it was... I don't know, people. I don't know. Something's going on here. But I will talk about that later, okay? I want to get into the news I need to cover and the stuff I need to cover. And so the deep dive into that, other than what the little few aspects I'm going to talk about more about General Flynn tonight, other than the few aspects, I'm going to tie it all together for people. But I obviously, every time I bring it up, my connection gets lost. So I'm just going to stop on the Patrick Burns side right now. I'm going to stop. So whoever's listening out there that keeps killing my internet, I'm stopping on it. I'm going to talk about that later. First thing I want to start with tonight. This is pretty crazy. So, what are the odds? Elon Musk on X last night, or this morning. This is what Elon Musk posted, right? He posted again, "You are the media now," on 11/21/24. Do you see that? November 21st, 2019. 5-year Delta. The Great Awakening. You are the news now. The absolute odds of that are astronomical. Now, it's interesting, too, because yesterday, this is what we get on X. Johnny Mnemonic, which is one of those accounts that I probably wouldn't follow. I don't follow him. But Elon Musk had posted a post about playing Diablo. This guy comes out and is like, post time 134, go drop 134, and throws Neo, right? And Elon Musk actually replied to him and said, not sure what the Q drop means, but the other stuff is pretty accurate. Now, he didn't say why he posted a Q drop, but he said, don't know what the Q drop means. And guess what? Many of us in the community, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to Q drops, and Elon called him out for it. But the next day, Elon posts, "You are the media now. You are the news now," which correlates directly with a 5-year Delta to the same date. If you needed any more confirmation, boom, right there. Yeah, FBI Jim is having fun tonight. And if you noticed, it stopped. It stopped right after I stopped talking about PB. So pro train golf mats, one of our followers there on X, dude, you're awesome. He put some really good comments out there. But he says, Earth to Sessions, come in Sessions, we've missed you. And this comes after, obviously, Matt Gaetz stepped down. And I put up there, where is Jeff Sessions? Soon. I don't think Jeff Sessions, we already know he's not going to be Attorney General. But I think Jeff Sessions has a place to play in this. Now, for anybody out there who watched the interview last night and wanted to watch the docuseries, here is our affiliate link and code, and you can use that. I'm putting it in the chats right now. It's also linked up, so you guys can use that. If you want to go out there and watch Patrick's movie, it's appreciated if you do use that link because it helps support everything that we do. It is in the live chats right now. It's also in the description box of the shows that you're watching. As a reminder, by the way, it is Thursday. So being Thursday, we do have the live Q&A Zoom right after the show. What is this video? That's not the video I was going to play. There's the video I was going to play. I'm going to play you a video, and then I'm going to put some things together for you, okay? And now everybody here understands this video. And I'm only going to spend a short amount of time on this, but I want you to listen very, very, very carefully what General Michael Flynn says here, okay? This was the beginning.
And we have an army. Okay, as a soldier and as a general, as a retired general, we have an army of digital soldiers. What we are now, what I call them, because this was an insurgency, folks. This was run like an insurgency. This was irregular warfare at its finest in politics, and that story will continue to be told here. But we have what we call citizen journalists. Okay, because the journalists that we have in our media did a disservice to themselves, actually more than they did to this country. They did a disservice to themselves because they displayed an arrogance that is unprecedented. And so the American people decided to take over the idea of information. They took over the idea of information, and they did it through social media.
Okay. Right here, I want you to listen to this part.
Because this was an insurgency, folks. This was run like an insurgency. This was irregular warfare at its finest.
Now, I'm going to lay some truth on you here. I know General Michael Flynn. I've interviewed him many different times, met him many different times. My impression of General Michael Flynn is that he is a general. 100% a U.S. Army forged general through and through. But he's not a woke general, and I think that that's really important. In his career, this was the top military intelligence expert in the world. All of his training and in his area of expertise is counterinsurgency, psychological warfare, and counterinsurgency. That's what he did for a living for 38 years. And what he just told you right there was that what the Obama administration did was an insurgency. It was irregular warfare at its finest. Now, let me ask you a question. If you are the U.S. military's top trained subject matter expert on irregular warfare, psychological warfare, and counterinsurgency, and now you've been put in a position of power as the national security advisor to the president, and then everything else happens. Are you stopping? You're not going to stop. And see, I don't know if people saw it last night. Patrick Byrne and General Flynn have a really good relationship. Really good relationship. They've worked together for the last 6-7 years. Okay? Now, I've said it before. But if you listened last night, you would have heard it. They have been running a counterinsurgency for a minimum of the last 6 to 8 years. So when you see all these people, and by the way, I started to look into this because nobody's sending me any evidence that Flynn is a bad guy, but now I see that people are dragging Kash Patel into it. And so I went and listened to one of these guys' podcasts, and he's like, the 15 reasons why Flynn and Kash are deep state agents. I'm going to tell you right now, be careful who you follow. Now, it's not because the guy had a convincing argument. He didn't. What he had was opinion, speculation, and hyperbole mixed in with factual statements that they know no relevance around the circumstances of. So these people out there that are against Flynn and everybody, what they're doing is they are pearl stringing certain events that are known to the public of what Flynn has done throughout his career, throughout the last 8 years, 9 years, 10 years, what Patrick has done, what Kash has done. They're stringing them together, and they're immediately labeled them as deep state activity that is counter to Donald Trump. And they're drawing it in, stating as fact their opinion, their interpretation of something. I watched this guy today. I don't know his name. I can tell you right now. Hold on. I'm going to tell you his name because he's on X and he's been on the MG show. Scott McMahon. He's one of the ones that Bongino was actually responding to yesterday. Scott talks about how the Flynn Intel Group had one contract with the Turkish government. And he said that their job was to take this American citizen and ship him off to Turkey. He's like, this guy was an American citizen. Why would they do that? Well, what Scott doesn't tell you is that that guy is one of the most wanted terrorists in Turkey. He tried to formulate a coup against Erdogan and the Turkish government and had blood on his hands of hundreds of people who died. And the Barack Obama administration gave him immunity and put him on a government severance and gave him land in Pennsylvania. with no extradition in place. And it's Flynn's job to bring him back to Turkey. He didn't tell you that. They talk about how Flynn, through the America Project, is taking money and investing and to bring in American First and MAGA people into Republican caucuses within states so that they can, and this is his words, infiltrate the Republican Party. Damn right. That's called a counterinsurgency. You're removing all the bad actors that over a long period of time, of decades, have come in and spoiled the system. Made the system so you and I have no voice. And so I was listening to this guy. Is number one is he provides no factual basis whatsoever. He provides no line items of, this was this because of this, and this. Here are the reasons why this is this indictment. This is this reason. He talks about Mike Pence's comments to the FBI pertaining to Michael Flynn. And he acts as if Mike Pence was telling the truth. That Mike Pence wouldn't lie. Mike Pence is a deep state fucking actor. Mike Pence fucking lied to the FBI to get Flynn under the radar with his Kislyak call. Be very careful who you follow out there, people. I'm not going to tell you who to follow, who not to follow, but what I'm going to tell you is be careful, because this is irregular warfare. This is information warfare. This is psychological warfare. And there are people out there who want you to despise, to hate. They want you to revolt. They want you to be so angry that both sides are the problem in the issue. Now, the other key to this is understanding that we're in an information war. And we've won a hell of a lot of battles. In the last just 4 years, we've lost a hell of a lot of battles. In the last 8 years, we've mounted up massive wins. The key primary win that we've had over the last 8 years is what General Michael Flynn was telling us that we needed to do in 2016. We had to redefine the idea of information. We had to take over the information domain, because the information domain is the primary key domain that dominates all other subdomains of warfare. When you're looking at a battlefield, you have domains of warfare that are operating. Human, SIGINT, all these types of things. Kinetic warfare, troop movements, resources, energy, strategic planning positions, all of these things. Satellite space, right? Sea, land, air, space, all of these components fit into these domains. But there's one domain that sits around every single one of them. The information domain. And if you control the information domain, if you are in control of the information domain, you control the outflow of what happens next. You control the world. And what happened over the last 8 years is the control of the information domain in the United States of America was given back to the people. Prove me wrong on that, anybody. That is what happened. The domain of information was brought back to the people, just like General Flynn said in 2016. We won that battle. It's still ongoing. But I want you to listen to Bill O'Reilly today. And I'm not a big fan of anybody on the screen, Cuomo, O'Reilly. I think O'Reilly knows and understands how the system works. But listen to Bill O'Reilly today talking about MSNBC.
Comcast said, you two, we're going to have to try to mend some cliche fences. And you two are going to go in there and you're going to try to tamp it down. Because Comcast knew the next day they were going to announce that MSNBC is vapor. That is a huge meteor story.
Why is it vapor? Just because they're spinning it off and putting them in the... They're spinning off a bunch of brands.
There's no spin-off.
There is. It's a spin-off company.
There's no spin-off. See, you buy the propaganda, Cuomo.
Oh, okay.
See what I mean about
I'm just saying
people?
What's being reported.
All right.
But what do you know?
Yeah, I know, but why would you believe what's being reported? You want the real story? Here it comes.
Please.
So they're uncoupling their word, Comcast, MSNBC from NBC News. That means MSNBC has no resources at all. None. They're not going to be able to pay these people millions of dollars, Rachel Maddow, whatever she's making. NBC News is saying, we don't want you around. Why? Because NBC News' numbers, Lester Holt and the Today Show, are catastrophe, because half the country equates NBC News with MSNBC, and they won't watch. So NBC is desperately trying to save the mothership of information, and they have to throw MSNBC overboard. They're not putting anything into MSNBC. They want to sell it. So where's Georgie Soros now? Georgie's buying radio stations. You can get MSNBC for nothing. They'll give it to you. They don't want any more of this. Why? Because it's hateful. Not because it's so far left. The whole NBC Comcast hierarchy is far left. But it's hateful. They hate Trump. They hate people who vote for Trump. Everybody knows that. And you know what's next? The View. ABC News is going to have to cut ties with The View. And you saw that today or yesterday when Sonny Hostin had to read a legal statement in the middle of a segment. The lawyers got Whoopi Goldberg's ear and it said, we're bringing a statement in on a teleprompter. She reads it. So it is over for these far left networks. Done, never coming back. Dracula's stake in the heart. Who benefits? News Nation may, but CNN, which is on the ropes too, will probably get some MSNBC viewers.
Wow.
There you go.
What do you think of that?
Well, I'm certainly not going to accuse him of not making sense.
Certainly not going to accuse him of not making sense. Bill O'Reilly, spot on. What does that mean? It means that the mainstream media, the lefty mainstream media, is failing. It's crumbling in its own foundation. We've accomplished that first goal of controlling the information domain. When I say control, I'm not saying that one person, one company, Donald Trump, or control it. You and I control the information domain. The podcasters, the influencers, social media is controlling the information domain. And we are fortunate and lucky to have X in order for that to happen. Now, we have to keep it. We have to preserve it. Now, will that happen? I do believe it will. I believe that we're going to have a long time of prosperity coming before us, but we have to get through the thickest shit. Man, I really wish I could talk about the other stuff that I wanted to talk about, but I can't. Every time I do, I get knocked off. Matt Gaetz today. I had an excellent meeting with senators yesterday. I appreciate their thoughtful feedback and the incredible support so many. While the momentum was strong, it is clear that my confirmation was unfairly becoming a distraction to the critical work of the Trump-Vance transition. There is no time to waste on a needlessly protracted Washington scuffle. Thus, I'll be withdrawing my name from consideration to serve as Attorney General. Trump's DOJ must be in place and ready on day one. I remain fully committed to see Donald J. Trump is the most successful president in history. I will forever be honored that President Trump nominated me to lead the Department of Justice, and I'm certain he will save America. What the hell just happened? Matt Gaetz pulls his name out of the nominations. Well, people, this is called the Scaramucci model. Anthony Scaramucci. You know the Scaramucci, if you remember, Anthony back in 2015, 2016 was basically an operative for the Democrats or the Republicans, and he would basically shop around to each candidate. And when Trump won, he brought him in. He brought him in for 11 days and then fired him. But see, Scaramucci brought in a lot of other things as well. He showed Trump by his allegiances who was good and who was bad. And see, this is a tactic that we call the Scaramucci model, that basically what happened here is it's believed that Matt Gaetz was nominated as Attorney General, not because they planned on him being Attorney General. He's going to go back to Congress in the next Congress, or he'll be a senator. Not because he's going to go into Congress, or not because he's going to become an Attorney General, because they wanted to find out exactly who the Trump loyalists were in Congress, in Senate. How many staffers were working behind the scenes to undermine Matt Gaetz? That's what they wanted to find out. You got to remember, you remember during the Donald Trump administration, they would put information out there. They would whisper in somebody's ear, one thing. They tell another person another thing. They tell another person another thing. And then when it leaked out to the media, they knew who was the bad actor. Well, that's what they just did with Matt Gaetz. They knew that bringing Matt Gaetz in that attorney general position would cause massive uproar on the left. And it would have them call in favors from political operatives. And they watched it unfold, and they watched all these political operatives get played. And when they came out, they have all their names. And then today, Trump came back and nominated Pam Bondi, the Attorney General of Florida, as the next Attorney General of the United States of America. Now, if you don't know Pam Bondi, the only thing you need to know about Pam Bondi, she was, number one, she was the first lawyer that represented Donald Trump in the first impeachment hearing. One of the lawyers that represented Donald Trump in the first impeachment hearing. She's been with Donald Trump for a very long time. She's very good friends with Donald Trump. She is what you would call a Trump loyalist through and through. She is probably the single best person that has a close relationship to Donald Trump to be Attorney General. Take it as you will. That's who your next Attorney General is going to be, because she will get confirmed. And in Florida, she's been fantastic. I can skip over that. We talked about Pam Bondi. Bob Casey, Democrat in Pennsylvania, the one they were trying to steal the race away from McCormick, has conceded. The Pennsylvania race is over. Bob Casey, the long-term serving senator, has conceded. All right, I'm going to bring Tammy in, but I want to finish some of the news, and I want to kind of talk it through with her and see what she has to say. But then we're going to get into MAHA Thursday. As a reminder tonight, guys, we will be doing the after chat Q&A with myself. The link for any of our subscription members on Substack or subscription members on Locals, the link is posted on those platforms. You just scroll down, you'll see the link. I'll even go in there and put a new link in and pin it to the top so you guys have that for Substack and for Locals. But on Social Red Pill, you go to groups and it's Thursday Q&A. Really easy. So if you're a member of the Social Red Pill, check it out. That's tonight, usually right after the show. But let's welcome in Tammy Cuthbert Garcia. What's up, Tammy?
Oh my gosh, another crazy week, right? All these taps, with Dr. Oz getting tapped now to be the head of CMS. I'm seeing like a division kind of in the health freedom movement in the natural health space. And I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't, I'm so tired of the division. And
you're not the only one seeing it.
Yeah.
Right there.
Exactly. Yes.
Nicole Shanahan, right there. I've always promised to be an honest broker in my political dealings and transparent with the public. There are 2 potential appointments that could be coming down the pike that would be a disaster for the people, our health, and the integrity of this administration. I'm working very hard behind the scenes to make sure they don't come to fruition. As I said, if you smell spoiled ingredients being added to the pot, you need to catch them before it turns a whole batch. Use your voice, it matters. And I'm assuming these are key appointments to the FDA and the CDC that Trump is probably considering, and they're most likely former Pfizer executives. And the reason I say that, many people don't know, Pfizer donated millions of dollars to the Donald Trump campaign in 2020.
Yep. That's where Bobby Kennedy got the shaft the first time around, right? He was tapped by Trump to do some work and actually put together a committee about vaccine injury. And at the last minute, it was just pulled away from him. And big donation from Bill Gates and Pfizer followed shortly after that. So yeah, it was really, really disappointing. I'm not defending Trump, but I don't think I just think he was surrounded by bad actors at that time and didn't really have the full grasp and scope of how deep the swamp was at that point. And so I'm hopeful that now he does. But now I'm hearing murmurs like you just saw Nicole Shanahan's. Let me say this about Nicole Shanahan, okay? I was like, what is Bobby Kennedy doing picking her, right? Because she's comes from Silicon Valley. Her ex-husband, co-starter of Google, right? So she's worth like $1 billion. because she got half of what he had at the time when they divorced. So, and then on top of that, she invented her own AI software. So because she came from Silicon Valley as well, and she had that development herself. So she earned on top of that. So she's got boatloads of money, right? So I was like, okay, well, that's why he's picking her, right? Because Bobby Kennedy's biggest hurdle was money. He didn't have the kind of money that Trump had, or the kind of money even that Harris had behind her with the Democratic Party, right? So he couldn't compete. So I kind of understood why he chose her, and I was actually a little disappointed when he picked her, because I thought, oh, here we go, transhuman, big tech type of millennial. She is not at all what I expected.
Right.
In a good way. She is really, she's really hammering home the regenerative farm movement, which of course is super interesting to me because I'm all about regenerative farming. I know that's the way to restore our food supply is through regenerative farming. The number one priority in farming is our soil. We don't, people say, oh, we have climate change or what. I hate the term climate change because it's really been hijacked. We don't have a climate change problem, but we do have an environmental problem. We do. And it's pesticides, it's herbicides, it's ruining the quality of our soil, which is then, passed down to our quality of food. And the reason why we have such a disastrous health outcome in this country is directly because of our soil. And so Nicole Shanahan she's like a dog with a bone on this regenerative farming issue. And I just love it. So I really appreciate her being candid about these two picks that could be coming down the pike. She said, I'm assuming it's not Dr. Oz that she's that concerned about. I'm not concerned about Dr. Oz. I don't like him. He's not my favorite, but here's what I've begun to understand from a wider perspective is that some of these people who, they stayed quiet. They stayed quiet through COVID, like Dr. Oz, like Dr. Phil, like some of these people that have massive platforms. They had a lot to lose, right? But they were also under contract. And I don't know what type of contract somebody like ABC would put you under, but I would assume it's pretty, clad iron tight, right? You're not going to be able to stray from the contract. So I would assume that because Dr. Oz is on mainstream TV, they have pharma sponsors, he probably was locked into some kind of contract where he had to adhere to it. I'm not defending him. He's still to me, these people are weak. They're weak if they're going to let something like that. They don't have an ounce of courage in their bodies, but it's me trying to understand their position and why they didn't say anything. And so Dr. Oz being given that position in Medicare, it's a whatever. He's not going to be dictating policies, not going to be dictating anything. But what he does bring to the table is access to that audience. People who watch Dr. Oz are the people who flip on the TV.
Well, they're the elderly who are on medication.
The elderly, exactly. So I'm trying to think about it from the point of view.
But there's also another point here. Dr. Oz has been very close friends with Donald Trump for over 30 years.
I did see somebody said something about that they had been friends a long time. And I just don't think we can completely, there's going to be a level of capitulation that happens with some of these people, right? Like they're the types of people, that's how they get in the positions that they get into, like having a daytime TV show where you're in everybody's living room, but appointed by Oprah. It's because you capitulate, because you do what people tell you to do, and that's not necessarily somebody that we should champion or somebody that is like a great hero or showed courage or anything, but it's a tool. And I think Donald Trump probably sees Oz, and I think Bobby Kennedy's starting to see people like that too. This is a tool. We now can infiltrate this audience, because I'll tell you, I have this aunt that I rarely ever talk to. Don't have a lot in common with her. She's not of the same type of thinking as you or I, say, Josh. Okay. But she freaking loves Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz. Okay. She is mortified now, that Dr. Phil and Dr. Oz have called out some nefarious activity around COVID. Because you see, I was just a crazy person talking about COVID the way I was during COVID, right? How dare I question the mask or the vaccine? That's crazy. Just, we have a pandemic going on, So she was all, chatting with my sister about how horrible it was, that I was taking this position. She wasn't in agreement at all. And, but she does like Dr. Phil and she does like Dr. Oz. And so now they're coming around and she's having to be like, oh, well, maybe it was that way. Saying, so I saw like the real live, impact of that. So I think that you're going to see Trump using these types of people to tap into that audience, to introduce somebody like Bobby Kennedy, because he's going to be the head of HHS. So they start actually doing some critical thinking to these otherwise kind of zombified people that just sit and watch these shows.
The Dr. Oz part, in the sense of Medicare and Medicaid reform, and how he's going to go in there and change it.
Yeah.
Think about that spokesman who has to get in front of the public and talk to the people who are using that service. Yeah. Who do you want there?
Yeah.
Dr. Oz. He's probably the best person. He's probably the best person in the world to do it.
Yeah.
And he's a Trump loyalist. Everybody that Donald Trump has picked yet far, whether you like it or not, has primarily been a Trump loyalist. And what I mean by a Trump loyalist is Linda McMahon.
From
the McMahon. Yep. They have been with Donald Trump for well over 30 freaking years. Pam Bondi, Dr. Oz, right? He's known RFK since the 80s.
Yeah. And I will say this, Josh, I can remember, and I've been searching for the clip, but I can't find it anywhere. I do remember there was something years ago that Dr. Oz said on his show. This is like a decade probably or more ago. It was about the HPV vaccine. His wife would not allow their girls to get that vaccine. And he said that on his show and said that he respected it. He respected her decision, but yeah, they wouldn't be getting it. And I wish I could find that clip, someday I'll be able to dig it up. But he did respect her decision on not giving their own children the HPV. So he has been a help to a lot of people. He's brought in different, more natural remedies and whatnot to a demographic of people that would never be exposed to that because they aren't doing their own research. They're just watching TV, Right. So he's brought at least the idea of natural medicine to people, that your body is capable of healing with herbs, vitamins, that nutrition does matter, these types of ideas. So he's not the worst pick. I mean,
well, I think that RFK. So number one, and I want to help everybody, because I've been looking at this very, very closely in the sense of what these people are going to do. One of the key points that they're going to do is they're going to take all the inspector generals of every single executive branch department. They're going to pull them out of the respective departments. So, for instance, the inspector general of the intelligence community falls underneath the director of national intelligence. The fox is guarding the hen house.
Right.
So they're going to pull them out, the inspector general offices out, and most likely they're going to put them under the Department of Government Efficiency. Well, think about that. It changes the whole dynamic.
Yeah.
Then what you're going to have.
I just love that whole thing.
I know. But then what they're going to do is you're going to have Elon Musk and Vivek, two very, very wealthy billionaires who know how to build and scale businesses efficiently. Yes. And they're going to look at each individual department, starting with the largest spender first, the Department of Defense. They're going to go in and they're going to say, what the hell is this? Why do we do this? Why do we have 100,000 employees show up every day in Washington, D.C.? What do they do?
Yeah.
Show me the relevant. How is this? Yeah. And they're just
it gets real. As a business owner myself, and we've done nothing but own businesses the whole time we've been married, Jason and I. So we know how to run a business. Yep. And I can tell you get really, really, resourceful. and you cut waste because it's all about your mission and your business, right? So that's what Elon and Vivek will bring to the table. It's like Elon especially, he has the mission of, getting to Mars. He wants innovation. He's a builder. He's an innovator. It's like, what am I trying to do here? I'm trying to send these rockets to Mars, right? I want to do this. This is his mission. Get out of my way. You have to kind of take that mindset when you're a business owner. Like, if you have a mission, every single person you have to deal with, they try to get you off your mission, because it becomes about them. It's always like, well, here's my problems. What about this? It's this constant diversion when you are trying to, trying to use your business to complete a mission. There's always these obstacles. And so you can become really proficient at like just being, get out of my way, get out of my way.
Well, yeah.
Nope, this is unnecessary. You half your day is doing that.
So what they're going to do on first day, I guarantee you this, first day, January 20th, they're going to go into every single governmental department's emails. And they're going to go starall.gov, starall.mil. All right?
Okay.
And they're going to send a blanket email out to all government employees saying, please send in, number one, your job position, your job summary, what you do in your daily basis, what your purpose is, all of these things. So they're going to have that come in. They're going to filter that through an AI. And they're going to look at efficiency. Why do we have 30 people in DOJ and 30 people in the DOD doing the same fucking job on the same damn thing?
Yeah.
And they're just going to cut it.
Yeah.
This is what's going to happen. And I want people to understand that, like what we're talking about with Health and Human Services. You're going to have a department that's this big that immediately within 6 to 12 months is going to be this big. That the CDC, FDA, all of this is going to be consolidated. See, one of the biggest problems that we find with CDC, FDA, NIH, all of this is that they're spider-webbed out through all the other branches. And this is how you formulate that structure of the deep state, is that you start separating it from the top head of what it is, and you spider it out amongst the intelligence community, amongst the DOD, and you integrate connections and bypass lanes that go around all of these checks and balances. And this is what they've done.
Sure.
And that's going to get cut down, and everything is going to go right back up to the top to that person who's in place that the president appointed. And I'm telling you, it is going to be an exodus out of Washington, D.C. Did you also know what he's going to do?
No, but before you go on to that other point, I just want to say that the side effect of that too, the side effect of downsizing all of that is going to be that these, like, the government always blames the other wing. You know what I mean? Like we're following CDC guidelines. Oh, we're following WHO guidelines. Oh, it's always, he did it, she did it, kind of thing. And so by cutting, that's the purpose of the apparatus you just described there too. It gets so wound up in all these different agencies, you can't pick apart who's responsible for what. That's part of the design. Yep. So by them, melting those layers off, it's going to make the government actually liable. Like right now, the FDA doesn't pass anything. Josh, they don't pass anything. If you don't hear from the FDA, it means your product's been approved. You know why they do? Yes, that is how they do it. You submit your application, you submit your user fee application for approval, and you wait. And a certain amount of time elapses. If you have not heard anything, then your product has been approved. This is how they get away from liability. Because if they actually issued you an approval, then they might be liable.
Yep.
It is such a scam the way the whole thing is set up. So I am looking forward to that happening, what you just described there.
And then the other thing they're going to do is they're going to decentralize government. Right now, our whole federal government, 85% of it operates out of Washington, D.C. Yep. Donald Trump is going to send the DOD to Colorado, to Montana, to California. He's going to spread it out. He's going to send
here.
Yep, the Health and Human Services, you're going to go here, here, and here. This is your 3 operating areas. And what that's going to do, and I don't know if people understand this, is that's going to bring in so much business for those states. It's going to revive states. It's also going to increase their population. And there's just so many good things that they're planning on doing.
Yeah.
And listen, I hope that they wage a war on the pharmaceutical companies.
Yes.
And just bring about responsibility, liability, and logic. I mean, it's not that we don't need these things. There's people out there that truly do need these things. But
they've way overstepped their boundaries.
Number one is make it illegal to advertise on television for pharmaceutical drugs. Number two, make it against the law for pharmaceutical companies to give bonuses to medical doctors and hospitals and medical organizations for promoting a drug.
Yeah.
Stop that whole system right there.
The Bayh-Dole Act needs to come out of there as well. That needs to be repealed. The Bayh-Dole Act is that legislation that allows government-funded researchers, okay? So you could be working for the NIH, which is a government-funded operation. They can collect royalties off of any inventions that they... that's wrong because it's taxpayer money, and that is infinite. Those royalties go on. They can will them to their kids and to their grandkids. So you're paying out $150,000, $200,000 a year forever on taxpayer money when, you know what? This discourages free enterprise. This discourages free enterprise in the world of science and that we need more of that. We need people who I'm going to come up with a cure for cancer and are privately funded, firm that do it, scientists that work for that company, because that's the only way that's going to push competition, first of all. And second of all, it's the only way we're going to get actual truth around products. Because right now it's all, comfy cozy. They get tenured in, they get royalties on there, and they take no risk. Meanwhile, American business people are out here trying to build businesses and grind it out without any government funding. We don't get our products mandated on people. We don't get a government pension for tinkering around in the science lab and coming up with another product and then get royalties off of it. This is just wrong. It discourages the free marketplace. One thing that I notice is very absent from the chat right now. Yes, big pharma. We know about big pharma. We know Fauci. We know the the COVID con. All of that's great discussion. But the one thing that is, striking to me that's absent from the chat about health right now is insurance. Insurance drives our health. And it is a monopoly. It's absolutely a monopoly. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It is, you would not put up with the way, no business would be allowed to operate the way our health insurance businesses are allowed to operate. It's an absolute monopoly, dictating to doctors what tests they can run, what tests they can't run. I was just talking to one of our doctors in our network, who would love to run comprehensive blood panels on people so that we can take a proactive approach, right? Where we're predictive and proactive, meaning we can take a look at your gene sequence and we can say, not that you're defined by your genes, but we can predict a lot by your genes. And there's comprehensive blood panels that you can run to find out, I can see from your genes that you may be going down this path of disease. So let's get ahead of that and let's make lifestyle changes. Let's upregulate your genes with supplementation. Let's get you, the proper amino acids into your diet. Let's supplement with collagen. Let's supplement with, all of the different vitamins and minerals that you need based on your gene profile. This is very much we're totally capable of doing this. We don't do it because insurance doesn't cover it.
Yep.
Insurance doesn't cover it. And not only that, but they actually harass doctors who pull those panels, those blood panels.
But it's almost like the actuator or the insurance companies. And I want to kind of put this together for people. It's almost like the doctor goes to the insurance company and they're going to request, hey, we need to do this, this, and this, and this. And then the insurance company squeezes that down only to a few different tests that they know is going to bring about a diagnosis, which is going to lead to a certain drug, and just so figures that insurance company is part of a multinational conglomerate, which also owns the pharmaceutical company that produces that drug. And it's just nothing more than an ancillary extension of the pharmaceutical companies or the global conglomerate.
Yeah, to make it worse, we have this middleman, right, which is the pharmacy benefit manager. That's the middleman in between your insurance company and your pharmacist, right? So, and the pharmaceutical companies. And what that middleman was supposed to do was supposed to negotiate prices across the board so that nobody could take advantage of people. You remember the pharma bro who, tried to up all of the, I think it was the allergy EpiPen medication.
Mm-hmm.
And there was another medication that did the same thing. So the pharmacy benefit managers were put into place, a third party to be negotiating prices between patients and the pharmaceutical companies, and, to work on behalf of insurance companies to try to get, the best possible price. Well, what happened was the pharmaceutical companies bought all the pharmacy benefit managers, all those companies. So what they do now is if you try to go into a pharmacy and say you need a $4 medication, the pharmacy benefit manager adds $6 onto that for themselves. So it's a $10 copay. And on top of that, they've put a gag order on all pharmacists. So pharmacists cannot tell you, oh, I could actually sell you this for $4. This is absolute. Nobody would put up with this. This is mob-like behavior.
It is mob. And that's what you're dealing with. You're dealing with a mob.
Yes.
It's a racket.
Yes.
Government is a racket.
The only reason they get away with it is because people don't know. They don't understand how it all works. And
the reason they get away with it is because the money they've made, they pumped into the pockets of politicians and bureaucrats that keep the system going. And then the system seemed to form around the money. Yeah. This is the problem.
Yes.
And if we go to the ultimate problem here, the ultimate problem actually exists in Washington, D.C. And its name is the lobby.
Exactly.
It's the
so I'm waiting for Trump to bring up the insurance lobby. I'm waiting for Trump to talk insurance. I'm waiting for Bobby Kennedy to talk insurance, because none of this model will change. I mean, I think it's cute and it's great. You're out there campaigning against Fruit Loops. It sends a very visual message to a lot of people that wouldn't necessarily pick up on the message. So I get why they're doing it, but the monster behind this thing is big insurance. And it's going to be a hell of a fight to bring them down and change it. Right now, this has been going on I used to work in physical therapy when I first got out of school. I worked in physical therapy. And the first month I was interning, I quickly realized what a joke insurance was. This is back in like 96, for goodness sakes. They used to have me coding papers, insurance, and they tell me, no, you got to charge 3 times the amount because they'll only pay out 1/3. So you had to charge $75 for a $25 procedure because they knew that they would only get paid $25. Now, the problem with that is a cash pay comes in, and it's illegal for us to say, this is $25. We have to say, this is $75. So either way you slice it, the consumer is getting screwed. Yeah. We are getting, and our health is the worst out of any country, right? Like,
and you know what they do?
We spend the most money on healthcare, and we have the worst outcomes.
That's right. And it's made to be that way. Why? Yeah. Because if you have a more unhealthy society, those insurance premiums go up. And if you look at how insurance is structured right now, whether PPO, so forth, go look at your deductible, your family deductible for any family out there, and then calculate last year's trips to the doctor, broken bone, all these types of things. Mm-hmm. Unless you have some type of major medical problem, you're losing money each year.
Every year. Yep.
You would probably have spent less than $2,000 a year on your medical care, which here's the thing. is if you took the same money, the $250, $350, $550 that you're spending on health insurance each month out of your paycheck, and simply put that in to a savings account.
Yeah.
You will be
or
when that
invested
big
in a property or invested. Yeah. You'd be
when that major
way
medical
better off.
condition actually comes, guess what? You got the money.
Yeah.
To be honest, HSAs
Yeah.
are not that bad. You know what they did with HSAs though, right? They treated them like IRAs.
Yes.
You have a annual maximum that you can put into your HSA. That's fucking bullshit.
Exactly. And then you have to spend it by the next
IRA?
year. Yeah, you have to spend it by the next year. So here's what I'm doing about it. I am just like, last night we held a naturally inspired spotlight at our facility. The community came in to learn about different topics. Last night we were talking a lot about anxiety. And this is one thing that the allopathic model does not even address, which is I think going to be, it's going to take some work to get people to understand that there isn't a division between, your neck, above your neck and below your neck. There isn't, it's not compartmentalized. The health of your body is whole. We are a symbiotic being. Okay. And so the allopathic model doesn't recognize that at all. Many people that are suffering from physical ailments, it's coming from a connection, a deeper connection from past traumas and, different events that they've had in their life that they've not been able to integrate. I'll give you an example of that. So, somebody there last night is suffering from anxiety. And there's no, we don't know why. He has no idea why he's suffering from anxiety. It's just something that came out of nowhere. This is what the allopathic model kind of teaches us, right? We sit and we wait until we don't feel good. And then we go get treatment. There needs to be a paradigm shift, right? To we're always living in prevention. We're being preemptive, we're being proactive, and we live in prevention from the day we're born. Right? We have so many different tools that can help us with this, but we're ignoring so many of them. One of the things we're ignoring is the emotional component to our health. This is going to be a big hurdle for the allopathic model because they are so used to being physical with the body. If you have inflammation is cancer, cut it out, right? Radiate it, kill it. That's their model. If you have a fever, shut it up, shut it down, take, acetaminophen,
reduce the symptoms.
Silence it. Instead of that model, we have to switch to a model that teaches us that when we get signals from our body, I don't even use the word symptom. I don't use that word because it triggers fight or flight mode in people. So it's a signal. It's actually a communication from your body. And we aren't separate from our minds, and our bodies are not separate. So when we have traumas in our life, whether they're physical, like a car accident, or whether they're emotional, like a abusive relationship or, traumatic event in your life, the body reacts in fight or flight. Now, if we're not taught how to integrate that event, then all of that energy, because that's a big jolt of energy, an adrenaline rush, and especially if it's chronic, because as human beings, we tend to run the same tape over and over again when we've been through a traumatic event. So your body doesn't know the difference between the event actually happening and you reliving it in your mind on a tape. So what happens is chronic fight or flight state ends up, you build up all of that energy into your tissues. Okay, so starts off maybe as a sore neck, or you start getting a sore back. Well, the allopathic model goes in and they say, oh, you got a sore back, here's some pain pills. Right? Here's some this. They treat the physical, but in reality, we have to look at both layers. We have to look at the emotional trauma. Many of my clients that come to see me, they start talking about things that trigger them getting off track with their health, overeating or using food as medication, or carrying food stories that provide comfort to them. I can go back in there in time with them on a timeline, and I'll say, okay, well, when did this symptom arise? Oh, well, that started when I was like 13. Okay, well, what was going on when you were 13? Most people say, no, not much. I mean, my parents got divorced at 13, but not much. right? So we've been taught to suppress things. Things that aren't normal have been made to be normal, so that if you don't respond to them in a normal way, meaning you don't have a response, kids are resilient. Kids are resilient, right? It's no big deal. This is what we've been told to comfort ourselves as the adults. But the truth of the matter is we don't really know how they're interpreting things. They're responding to the conditioning outside of them. Kids are resilient. It's totally fine. No big deal. So then they're not shown how to integrate these traumas, right? And integration is so important. It's not about pretending like something never happened. It's not just acting that you're okay. It's really about being able to integrate it part of your personality. So the traumas that happen to you, you know they happen to you, and this is why I am XYZ. You integrate them into your personality so that you can heal instead of suppress them and tell yourself and your subconscious banks that you need to respond in this way. This is the right way to respond, regardless of how you feel. So there's a lot of work to be done in this department through the allopathic model. This week, we talked a lot about anxiety and the different nutrients. So even your stress response, having a chronic stress response, depletes you of nutrients. So your mind depletes you of nutrients. Your chronic thinking that triggers cortisol, that triggers that fight or flight response, actually deneutralifies your body. So for them to compartmentalize emotional from physical is insane. There is no departure from either or. We're going to see, Josh, and it's going to be really exciting. We are going to see a complete revolution of our healthcare system, because it turns out that most of our, mental type statuses and whatnot, they come from our gut biome, which we've talked about at length on here before as well. They don't come from a chemical imbalance in our brain. It's not a chemical imbalance. Right. We've debunked that whole fraudulent science that was discovered to be, that claim was discovered to be made specifically to market SSRI drugs. That's right. What it was about. Now we know so much more about metabolic health and how that impacts our mental health. And there is no division between the two. See, we've treated people that have had depressive disorder, anxiety, these types of things, like they have emotional problems, like it's all mental. It isn't separate. It is physical. And it is trauma, and it's how we store that trauma in the body.
Reciprocating. They're reciprocating. Yes. Now, yes. I want to touch on a comment that came up a little while ago when we were talking about the insurance thing, because I think that maybe you can take this in the same context that you're talking about it now. This is from Roxy. She says, the problem is if you get a major diagnosis like cancer or multiple sclerosis, you'll never have enough money saved to cover that type of care for the rest of your life.
Yes.
Now,
because there's no cure in the allopathic model for those diseases.
That's right.
But I'm telling you, we are headed into a new era.
Well, so in my thoughts were on that immediately is, number one is, and I love Roxy. Roxy's a part of the Red Pill family for a long time. Is that there's not genetic dispositions towards these things.
Nope.
There's 2 million years of human evolution on this planet, if we want to look at it like that, where none of these things were a problem.
That's
which means that if they are a problem in somebody's life, that means that they most likely came about through environmental means, as in things within your environment, your external reality affected you in some way, mental, emotional, or physical, biological, that has produced those types of things to happen.
That's right.
Which means, as well, if there's a persistence of those illnesses and diseases, then by changing that environment, that also should change. And we find that a lot with cancer patients. We know that there's various therapy and healing centers all throughout the world, Mexico, Florida. I know Florida,
Panama,
the Hippocrates Institute in Florida. They're amazing. You go into there. I know my father's neighbor in Carlsbad, California. She was an executive vegan chef. went in, had lumps in her breast, diagnosed with breast cancer, stage 4, whatever that means. Stages really don't matter, but metastasized. And doctor basically said, go home and die.
Yep.
She went to the Hippocrates Institute down in Florida. I have no affiliation with them whatsoever. She was there for 3 months, came back and cancer-free.
Yeah. Detox process.
Zero drugs.
There's a covert operation, I won't say its name, close to where we live in Colorado. It's affiliated with a church. And they do some interesting things there where people go in with cancer and come out without it.
Yep. Hands on.
They do detox protocols, from what I understand. They don't advertise
Gerson therapy type of stuff.
Yep. So, I mean, these types of therapy, like, I hate to be so dark, but cancer is a big business. And I'll tell you, being in the natural health space, like, we all know you don't say the C word. You do not say the C word because they will come after you. This is something they have coveted for many, many years. And I do believe we're on the road to a revolution, though.
So I want to actually make an announcement for everybody out there who kind of follows influencers around there. If anybody remembers, I used to work for American Media Periscope. I was one of their hosts over there. There's another host that was over there with us by the name of Lieutenant Scott Bennett. Scott Bennett had been really big in a lot of the aspects of understanding intelligence, understanding psychological warfare. That's what he did in the U.S. Army. He's been on Nino's show, Scott McKay's show, all these guys' shows. For anybody who didn't know, Scott Bennett passed away today.
Oh, sorry.
And he passed away of cancer. And he was fairly young. I think he was in late 40s, early 50s. But I was talking to a friend of mine about it, and he said stress got him. It was it was being dragged through the ringer by the lawsuits and jail time and the threat of that. It was all of these things that produced that. So it goes to your point that you just talked about.
Yeah.
That the emotional side is, so this is one thing as a parent and understanding it, that I want my children truly to understand, especially at that age of puberty when their hormones are starting to go and they have these new emotions that are coming into play.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to understand that number one is you don't suppress, repress, bottle up. You don't disappear your emotions. You don't do that, because what's going to happen is that will manifest as trauma, and later in your life it'll manifest as injury. I know that for a fact. And instead of telling them don't do that, what I do is I show them how to actually deal with it. And that's one thing that's not taught in school. It's not taught in medicine. It's not taught in church. It's not taught anywhere of how to deal with your emotions, how to write things out, how to speak things out, how to, and Tammy, the interesting thing is, I've had this theory for the longest time called optimization theory. And it's based upon one primary principle within the universe, is that everything is an exchange of energy.
Yeah.
That as everything is an exchange of energy, whether it's the Planck's length and the subquantum interactions, it's all an exchange of energy. You get to the quantum world and everything that's happening there. It doesn't matter if it's a spin of a boson. It doesn't matter if it's a quark. It's all exchanges of energy.
Yeah.
Whether it's through fields or particles or whatnot, it's just exchanges of energy. But there's two primary things that dominate that exchange of energy. Number one is relationship. That in order for an exchange of energy to occur, there has to be a relationship developed. And the next part of that relationship is there has to be established communication. Right? Yeah. And so the exchange of energy, the building and development of relationships, and then the communication thereof. And what we do as human beings is we do the exchange of energy, we build the relationships, but we have no fucking clue how to communicate.
Yeah. Yeah.
We fail at the community. Give me any marriage out there, right? Tell me how well you communicate with your spouse. And if you have been together for 30 years, 50 years, guess what? You have good communication, or you two just don't give a shit, right? Yeah. It's one or the other. Yeah. You put up with each other long enough, you might as well keep on going. But you look at healthy thriving relationships, there is an established communication that both people are willing and understand the dynamic of communication. And I think that is one of the largest components of human reality that has been left out of the equation almost everywhere. Is that number one is a relationship is developed between two people. You have to communicate to keep that relationship healthy. But now I'm going to transition to everybody. Is you have a relationship with yourself. You have a relationship with your body. You have a relationship with your mind. You have a relationship with your emotions. And if you don't communicate with them, if you don't reciprocate them, if you keep on doing the same thing in life and you get emotional damage from it, but you continuously do it, what are you telling your body? What are you telling those emotions in your body?
Yeah.
And see, the thing is your reality begin to present more of those things for you.
Absolutely.
And eventually it's going to metastasize into disease and illness and cancer and so forth. But you have to ask your body for healing. You have to ask and communicate with your body. You have to be mentally sound in the aspect of understanding your mental, your emotional, and your physical and your spiritual, in many cases, states.
Absolutely. I agree. I think one part of that I would just add to that is communicating your pain. You have to communicate your pain. That's part of the integration of it. And I say this quite often because a lot of times what I find where people are not taking care of their health, Josh, it's because they aren't living their purpose. And so it's self-sabotage. It's self-inflicted many times. Their habits, their lifestyle, it's almost like a form of abuse upon themselves.
Sadism,
Yeah, because they
Escapism.
know what they should be doing, but they can't bring themselves to do it. And it's because they're not really living their purpose. And I always tell people, to look for your purpose is so important, but look for your biggest pain. Like for me, the reason why I do what I do is because my family's been deeply impacted by chronic disease. I lost my aunt at 40 years old from cancer. She died in front of us. She was like a second mother to us. All my grandparents died early. And then I lost my mother to cancer. My son was vaccine injured. Like, enough. I got to a point where I was like, enough. This is not the way I'm living my life. And I took that pain and I started critical thinking and practicing holistic health for better results. And I got them. And now I use that pain to educate other people, to help people come to the point in their life where they understand that they don't have to suffer and that we all go through horrific things in life. And we can either dwell in that, and we can suppress that, or we can communicate our pain and then use it to help other people get through similar situations and benefit from our pain. And I know that may sound like idealistic, use your pain for positivity or whatever, but I truly think that is really where we should start looking at our purpose, whether you communicate through art or you communicate through, academia, or you communicate through, woodworking. You know what I mean? Like it could be anything, but we're definitely here to be creators, not just to be takers.
And I think that you're right that most people fail at purpose in life.
Yes.
And I think that it's the system that was generated around us. I haven't talked about this stuff in a long time, but I love history. I love reading about history. Although the last year or two, I haven't read very many books, but I want people to think back to the Roman age, right? The Roman times. The average person worked 3 months out of the year. Work wasn't something that you did every day, day in and day out. Okay. Work was based. So, have you ever seen the show Orville?
No.
Seth MacFarlane, the guy, Family Guy, American Dad.
I know him, but I haven't seen the show.
So he's a huge Star Trek fan.
Okay.
And he wanted to do a Star Trek series, and basically whoever owned Star Trek told him no. And he's like, okay, well, I'll do my own series. And he calls it Orville. And it's modeled after Star Wars. It's like 300, 400 years into the future. Humanity has built, spacecraft and are explorers in the universe, and they're part of a galactic federation. But they explain their society of how their society operates. They have no money, but currency in their world is your contribution to society.
Right.
Okay. But this is the idea, is that the wealthy you are is the bigger your contribution. So it's incentivized for you to be successful and to go out there and bring big contributions to society. Well, guess what? That's the Roman methodology. The Romans, you are as wealthy as your skill set, period. If you were a steel worker, if you're a woodworker, that was your skill. And guess what? You would do your skill whenever you wanted, but you wouldn't have to do it day in and day out, night and day. You wouldn't work 8-hour, 12-hour shifts. It was every 3 months, you go out there. Oh, you need a sword? I'll make you a sword. Clink, 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 clink.
Yeah.
Takes him 3 months to make the sword, sells the sword. Now he's got enough money to live on for the next 12 months and doesn't have to work. That's how society operated. And guess what? Even in the 19th century, that's how it operated.
Yeah.
We always see the Western movies, right? They go in there and bartender, give
leather maker. Yeah.
Right. But here's the thing. That bartender owned the fucking bar.
Right.
He was only working it because that was his establishment. There was no workers and waiters and servers. These things are a thing that are newer to our society. It's not normal. And so
I see a pattern here. What you're talking about, I see a pattern with everything when you're talking about that. That's what we've done to farming as well. Instead of small farms feeding their communities, we've foregone small farms and we've said, oh no, we're going to have these huge industrialized farms and they're going to feed everybody. Well, it's corrupted everything. It's corrupted the soil. We have shitty food, like bigger, better, faster. That's been the motto over this century, and it's done us a huge disservice. It has done us, and we're miserable. People are miserable. I can only name a handful of people that I know that actually do what they want for a living.
Right.
And they're spending all their time doing what they hate. They hate what they do.
Most people hate what they do. Now, an interesting thing is I just saw Roxy. She said, but Star Trek was socialism. So actually, in Orville, they explain this. And they say, in society, your value is what you bring, your skill set, right? And your contribution to society. And people are like, well, that's socialism. That's collectivism. Actually, here's the problem. In 20th and 21st century communism, socialism, Marxism, we'll just call it Marxism, everything is about control of the people, and they utilize resource allocation to control the people. And that's how they actually seize the power. In the future, when you talk about Star Trek and Orville, in Orville, they explain it. They say, when the replicator was developed, the food replicator, so they have replicators in the ship, and, Earl Grey, black, right? I can get a cup of tea, and it makes you a cup, and there's your hot tea. It makes you a steak. It makes you whatever you want. You can replicate a ninja sword. You can replicate a gun, an Uzi. You can replicate any damn thing. Give me 5 gallons of gasoline. Bloop, it replicates it. They said once the replicator was invented, we lost the dependency on natural resources.
Yes.
And once that occurred, our society was broken free from the grips of 20th century governments. And they're absolutely spot on correct, because what they did is they developed a replicator and they gave it to every single person. Everybody had one.
Mm-hmm.
And if it broke, you get a new one.
Right.
And that's just the one system that they always kept going. And when you're freed of those natural resources, well, your life becomes amazing. You can do anything you want.
But will people do whatever they want now? Because I think so many people have lost the dream. They don't even know what they like to do anymore. They're not even sure. And I think a good way out of that is not, we are a me generation. We've focused on ourselves. Very few people volunteer anymore. Very few people, dedicate to real true service. And I mean, real true service out of, with nothing in exchange, not serving at work or serving in your business, but truly serving. And for someone that's going through a transition in their life, meaning, they've ended a relationship or they've lost a loved one, they're in grief or whatever, I would say, try to stop thinking about yourself. Get out there and serve somebody else, and it'll bring you new inspiration. It'll reframe what you've got going on just by connecting with somebody else. It is a powerful way to rediscover your own purpose, is focusing on other people for a while. I
Right.
mean, we're in a hugely narcissistic society right now. I mean, I don't, the trans thing is a whole nother issue, but today I focused on that at the beginning of my show, because people think that, trans is totally normal. Well, that's what the Democrats are trying to get people to think. What it is a very deep, deep narcissistic behavior disorder. They've upped the ante. They've upped the ante from, identifying as gay to something else. And it's very narcissistic to try to get the whole society to comply to your needs. And when you don't, so later in the day, I went on the air talking about Representative Nancy Mace, who was just saying, absolutely not. We're not having men in our bathrooms, right? We're not having men in our bathrooms. And she was attacked. Somebody tried to she wasn't attacked, but somebody tried to storm the stage that she was speaking on today at an event. And it was a trans man. Again, it's this, it just fits every box of narcissism to do this, to expect people to convert to a different way of life for your need.
Well, I think that there's a few different factors that go into it. I agree that there's narcissistic tendencies. There's also a rejection of self that occurs usually around teenage or puberty years. And we won't get into the prepubescents that are more coalesced into that mindset by parental authorities, right? That's a completely different level of psychological warfare. But these children who grow up and they start hitting puberty and they begin to have these types of thoughts, there are narcissistic tendencies. But I also think that there's a subservience that's produced there, is that instead of bringing about that logical and rational center of the brain to formulate up and to explore these new emotions that are arising in their body that they can begin to express through their gender, what they do is they release that to the collective. They give that interpretation. Instead of self-identification, they have social identification. Is they release that internal confusion of newly formed emotions from all the hormones raging in them to the social structure instead of taking responsibility for itself. So there's a subservience to the social construct. And the only social construct that we currently have set up for that is the LGBTQI community that is in a level of acceptance. So I think that plays a major role in it. We were talking about this. Did you see what happened at the beginning of my show?
No, I didn't.
So I had Patrick Byrne on last night.
Okay.
Patrick Byrne, former CEO of Overstock.com.
Yeah.
He was played by the government. He came out, helped Trump. He was one of the people in the meeting with Trump in December when they were trying to, get Donald Trump to do something about the stolen election in 2020. And he came out on last night and he told his story. And it was mind-boggling, mind-blowing. He dropped some information that nobody's ever heard before. Well, I started off this show saying I wanted to say a few things about it. Every time I began to talk about him, my internet dropped.
Oh, shit.
And I'm like, okay, well, let's get back into the conversation. I'd start again. My internet dropped. And
that happened to me when I had Mickey Willis on when he had just dropped the pandemic.
Yep. It happened 4 times. And I said, okay, I'm done. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And my internet has been fine ever since. So,
Yeah.
So, but we were talking about it last night, and I think I was talking about it the night before, is that what we witnessed, actually, no, I wrote that's what it was. So I do a subscription show, subscription broadcast. I sometimes write articles about it. Okay.
Right.
And it's posted on my Substack, my locals, and Social Red Pill. The other night I did one that, instead of doing a broadcast, I instead wrote an article. I love writing. I haven't written in a long time. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. And I called it The Systematic Destruction of the Old Guard, the Daily News Brief article. Okay. Now, it starts talking about the book Generations. Have you ever read the book Generations?
I don't think so.
It's just data. It's by William Strauss and Neil Howe, the authors of The Fourth Turning.
Oh, I've read there The Fourth Turning.
Okay, so The Fourth Turning comes out of the book Generations. Generations is the compilation of the data of the history, right?
Yes,
and I go through the idea of the high turning, the awakening turning, the unraveling turning, and the crisis turning. And I give examples of all of this.
Yeah.
And then what I do is I start to integrate it into understanding, but then something happened, right? That there was this thing. Okay, right here. I got it right here. In my opinion, actually, we'll go here. If you have not guessed it, we are currently in the fourth turning. The generational cycles typically last 72 years, but can go as long as 90 years. We can estimate that each turning is approximately 20 years long, with overlap occurring among them. Strauss and Howe researched the history of humanity from 1584 to current date, and even pondered in a predictive manner the future and what it would bring. They were able to accurately predict the pandemic in and around 2019, global conflicts, political revolutions, and cultural transitions. One of the most interesting things that they discovered was that during the era of crisis, the fourth turning, there seemed to always be some sort of global revolution or war, last one being World War II. It is interesting to come to the realization that humanity is dominated by cycles, whether it be natural circadian rhythms of the sun, the moon, and earth, or whether the patterns within your hemisphere or the psychological pattern of human evolution of consciousness. All of these have a profound impact on our civilization, ultimately humanity. Then I said, it's almost like this group of world leaders, global elite, understood this four-turning cycle. And what they did is they interjected at the beginning of the next generational cycle, 1943. And they interjected where nature naturally was. As in, these cycles had progressed naturally over time, right? Just the social dynamics of culture and cultural infusion and people getting pissed off of, revolutionaries and all this stuff, right? It was just a natural flow of things. But this time, there was a way to influence humanity in many different ways. You could influence them biologically with pharmaceuticals and with Medicaid and Medicare. You can influence them financially with
social media.
Right. And then all of a sudden you can influence them psychologically, psychological warfare. And then the psychological warfare allows you to begin the transformation of the cultural component, because there's a social cultural component within the four turnings
for sure
that is predominant upon what happens at that next golden age. That in that generation.
Didn't you find that interesting that Trump is calling it the golden age?
He is, absolutely. And what happened over the last 50 years, 60 years, is they hijacked culture and utilized psychological warfare against the people to produce a new subservient culture. And that's exactly what happened. Is the whole trans ideology is nothing more than an extension of transhumanism, which transhumanism is futuristic eugenics. I want everybody to understand. This is the eugenicists from the late 19th century, early 20th century, the Margaret Sangers, right? The Rockefellers. This is the transhumanists, okay? The reason they're transhumanists is because what is the first thing they do with trans people? Castrate them. They make sure that they can
dehumanize them.
They dehumanize them. Make sure they can no longer reproduce. The next stage of that is going to be integration.
Yes.
It's going to be, okay, well, you've lost your gender identity and you want to identify as a bobcat. Well, guess what? Now tap into the neurological computer AI system and you can be a bobcat all day long.
Funny you would say that, because that's what I was talking about at the open of my show today about these trans people. They are living whoever they want to be online in virtual reality, right? So they can be behind a screen, they can use an avatar, they can interact with however they want to and lead people to believe that they are something they are not online. I feel like that has been permitted for so long now that they've gotten to the point where now they want to do this in reality.
Yeah.
This is who I am. You have to accept it. The problem is we need a foundation of truths in our society to be able to operate, right? I always use this as an example. If suddenly everybody just decides to disagree what green means go and red means stop means, what happens on the road? Crash, bang, chaos, right?
Oh, that's such a great example, though.
That's what's happening. That's what was happening. But now the brakes are being put on because Trump won, right?
They are.
I mean, Trump won. But that's exactly what was happening. It's like we are being told that the green light doesn't mean go anymore and the red light doesn't mean stop. And nobody knows how to drive on the road. We're all walking around thinking, oh, I can't say this, I can't say that. No, we need people to be courageous and say, absolutely not. If you have male genitalia, you have a penis, you're a man. If you have a vagina, you're a woman.
Yeah.
That's it. And we're not playing your game. You play what you want online in your virtual reality, in your bedroom, whatever. But when you emerge into society, these are the rules we're playing by. And if you don't want to adhere to them, then you're going to have to suffer the consequences. Period.
So I want to put one thing in here, okay? Because there's one phrase that we always hear when we start talking about trans ideology and all this stuff. And I want people to understand that it's not necessarily true. It can lead to it, and it does produce a mass amount of it, and that's mental illness. Yes. It's not brought on by mental illness. It induces a state of mental illness because of the imbalance that's going on within the body because of all the pharmaceuticals and the emotional damage that's being done. Mm-hmm. I want people to see the difference in that. Someone doesn't have mental illness that leads to it. It's social conditioning. It's social engineering. It is culture that is being manufactured that is leading to them to be that. Actually,
well, consider this too, autogynephilia, right? That is the condition where it's in the DSM-5. It's described as being, having a sexual fetish by dressing up in women's clothing. Mm-hmm. And this is true. This is why it's dangerous. This is why it's dangerous because there are men that are entering women's spaces dressed like women and getting erections in these spaces because this is their thing. This is their fetish. And the problem is, like, I think it was Kirk that put out a video today saying, oh, I'm just so disgusted with Nancy Mace. This is so mean. This is so gross. Sarah McBride is a wonderful person. She's a representative in Delaware. She is a he, first of all. She is a he. And second of all, she may present herself, Sarah McBride may present herself in public like she is
he.
Yeah, he presents himself in public like all he has going on, all his symptomology of mental illness is autogynephilia. He likes to dress up like a woman, right? But we don't know we don't know how far that fetish will go. We don't know anything about it. This is one person. They're asking for him to be able to use the women's bathroom on the Hill, and Nancy Mace is saying, no way, this isn't going to happen. And the reason why it should not happen is because we can't just have any man decide at will, I now identify as a woman, and then put every other woman in danger. Because, you think Kirk thinks that Sarah McBride is a wonderful person and she should be able to use the same bathroom. No, I said on my show today, it's like you're walking down the street, you see somebody coming with a machete, and you're supposed to just ignore the machete and be like, oh no, that's mean. I can't assume that someone's going to chop my head off because they're walking down the street with a machete. That's right. Yeah, this is a mental illness.
He identifies as a butcher. He's just going to work.
This is what I said. Like, some profiling is good. It's there for a reason. You're teaching young people to be defenseless. You're training them to not respond to freakish behavior that may be putting them in danger. This is what they're trying to do. Mm-hmm. And that is ridiculous. Again, we have to go back to the common sense approach where these are the foundations of life. When something looks weird, something is off, something looks dangerous, somebody's acting strange, walk the other way, right? protect yourself first. And what they're doing is they're trying to condition people to not respond properly. And they're going to put women and girls in grave danger, because the truth of the matter is these men have autogynephilia. They're sexually aroused by being in women's clothing and being around women. And they overpower women physically in their physical strength, and they're a threat. So
there's
it's
no
just
difference in muscle mass with men and women. What are you talking about?
Oh, I was reminded of that today just because, I've been running for 25 years, I've been running 25 years, and my son has just recently taken up running, pretty consistently, and he's already kicking my ass. Right? It's like, phew, he's gone. There is no comparison between men and women. I mean, I realize we have an age difference too, but it's pretty sickening, what a young man in his prime can accomplish athletically is like, yep. There is no competing with it from a female perspective.
Wow. Oh my God. Well, next Thursday, MAHA Thursdays, everybody. This is what we talk about. We talk about these issues in the sense of health and making America healthy again. And we talk about all aspects of it: psychological, emotional, physical, mental, and yes, even spiritual. If you want to visit Tammy, I noticed a few people out there. How do I get a hold of Tammy? Number one place is Naturally Inspired Podcast or naturallyinspiredradio.com. You can also find her at redpills.tv/NIP. November India Papa. But the easiest way is this is the easiest way. Okay, I'm telling you right now. Easiest way. Just text 720-303-8868. Just text that number. That's Tammy's number. She's got the cell phone in her hand. Literally, a text is going to come in saying, hi. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm offering some group coaching too for some of my customers. So that could be, one-on-one coaching can get expensive, and my calendar's getting pretty full with one-on-one coaching. So I want to make sure I'm extending this offer to everybody. So group coaching is available. If you're interested in that, text me at 720-303-8868. Naturally Inspired is all about building community. That's how you get healthy. Is you really do need community support. What do they always say? If you are hanging around, 5 people that have bad habits, you're going to be the 6th person with bad habits. It's about building community.
Look at any successful people in the world, and you will find people that they surrounded by themselves around that were successful. That is the Carnegie model of success that Napoleon Dynamite talked about. It was interesting. Last night we had Patrick Byrne on, and Patrick Byrne was the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar corporation, Overstock.com, and very wealthy throughout his life. But his mentor when he was growing up, you know who his mentor was growing up? And nobody ever knew this until last night. Warren Buffett.
Oh, wow.
His father is friends with Warren Buffett.
Wow.
And so Warren Buffett helped him when he was a teenager, and it's crazy.
Wow.
Someone asked, did Matt, I don't even know who Matt is. Did
Matt Gates probably?
Oh, yeah. Matt Gates did step down. We talked about that earlier in the show. If everybody wants to go check out that earlier part of the show, I did cover all of that. But guys, go visit Tammy. Give her some support. Text her 720-303-8868. I am heading over to the Thursday night Q&A. I will be there in about 10 minutes, but the Zoom is open right now. You can find it on Social Red Pill. The links are also on Substack and on our locals community. I'll make sure to go post those real quick in those communities for everybody to have. Tammy, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Josh. Always a great conversation. Thank you, Red Pillars. I love this community.
All right. Much love. God bless. Take care. Have a great night. We'll see you guys next time.
Spoon. That's impossible. Only try to realize the truth.
What truth?
There is no spoon.